is called the tailings deposition area, and that's where the tailings settle. And Freeport's built 2 levees on either side of this area to contain and control the impacted area. And so this is kind of a controversial issue because people don't like mines that put tailings in the river. There are only 3 or 4 in the world that do this, but they have to because of the topography of where they're located. So this is another diagram that kind of just shows you the approved tailings management area that was looked at. And Freeport looked at a lot of different alternatives. They looked at pipelines to try to bring the tailings down to the lowlands and pipelines rather than using the river. But it just with the high seismic activity, the land, the rainfall events that you have, the landslides, it could be very easily damaged by terrorist type activities. There's just no way that a pipeline system could work in this kind of a setting. So the river had to be used, and it still is used today. And one of the things that we did is we set up a large reclamation program. You can see some of the early shots here of planting different things in the tailings and growing. And we grew all kinds of fruits, food, all kinds of things. We tested for toxicity. There's no toxicity issues. And you can also see here, this is a shot of that area that's impacted by the tailings. You can see a lot of natural vegetation that's growing up through the tailings. And that was a lot of the work that we did early on in the project. This is a shot with the town of Tamika, which is off to the west side. And you can see the tailings river there on the right side of your picture. And the engineers designed the levees so that the levee that's along the Tamika side is is higher than the levee that runs along the eastern side of the tailings area. So if we did get a big flood event, if the levees were going to fail, you would want them to fail away from the people. And there was also a buffer area that was built between the levee and the town of Tamika, and you can see some of the local drainage that runs through that local area, and that's a really nice area for fishing and recreational activities for the local community. So the system was designed for safety and also to help enhance the town of Tamika, which today has, I think, over 150,000 people in it. So when I arrived there, there was, I think there was about a few hundred people that lived in Tamika. So it's amazing how it's built up over time. So, and then this just runs you through the different issues surrounding tailings. I won't go through all that, but it's there if you're interested in this. We talk a lot in our class about adaptive management, and this is a great project about adaptive management. How you plan, you do your plan, you implement the plan, but then you have to evaluate and you learn, and you have to make some adjustments, and you have to come back and keep adjusting your plan. When you're working with so many different variables and complexities, you have to have adaptive management. It's the only way to be successful. And the entire tailings management plan has been a good example of adaptive management. So here's some more pictures so that you can kind of see the areas that have been revegetated. You see the wildlife that comes in, the town of Tamika that's grown up in that area. We also have, I mentioned earlier, we have the local panning, local people come in, and there's gold. There's still some residual gold that's left in the tailings that the mill doesn't pull out. And so you have people that move into these different areas and they pan for gold. And it's been a challenging issue. Typically the police and the military have gotten involved. It's very lucrative. They will be the buyers, where they buy the gold from the people who are panning, and then they'll take that gold into Jakarta and they'll sell it on the world market. And so there's all kinds of conflicts that evolve. People who want to get the good panning areas, people who want to get the good prices. There are all kinds of challenges around that. But a lot of these people can make a lot of money compared to a normal job. They can make $50, $100 a day panning for gold in the river, so it's been quite lucrative. And that's why you have a lot of people who go in there and try. As the price of gold goes down, and the price of gold has been going down recently, it gets harder to make the money doing this kind of activity. And so that's a challenge. When the price of gold goes up, then you get an influx of people coming in. So that's also another variable that makes it complex. We also looked at tailings as a resource, and Governor Swabu, who is the governor of Papua, he liked to call the tailings, he wanted to call them beginnings, because you could build lots of infrastructure. You could build roads, you could build houses, bridges, you could build things by mixing with polymers, mixing with concrete. You can actually use the tailings to construct things, helpful things for society. So that's continues to be something that Freeport continues to work towards, to get people to not think of it as a waste, but as an opportunity. These are just some more pictures of the highlands and the lowlands reclamations. This was the reclamation center that we had there, and this was a big part of the effort when I worked there, was setting all this up and documenting all the good good results. Freeport also invested in a hotel in Tamika. It was actually sold to the Sheraton for a while, and then the Sheraton, I think, sold it back. And I'm not sure who owns it now, whether Freeport owns it or there's some investor that owns it, but there's a beautiful 5-star hotel in the Tamika area, so a lot of tourists now actually go into the area too. Also near Tamika, Freeport built a light industrial park. They're the largest Caterpillar user in the world, and they got Caterpillar to come in and set up a warehouse, and Caterpillar carries all the spare parts for the mine. It used to be that Freeport would have to buy and hold the spare parts and carry that on their books. And this is something that mines are doing all over the world. They're getting their suppliers to come in and build these facilities, these warehouses, and stockpile the equipment and spare parts that they need. And it's a big help to offset some of the carrying costs that a big mine like this has to carry. Then this busy picture, but it shows you some of the upsets that we had, protests, roadblocks. We've had the union workers go out on strike. We've had local people block the road. We've had conflicts with the military. A lot of different challenges over the years at the Freeport operation. And sometimes Freeport got blamed very unfairly in the press. From my experience, Freeport really was trying to do the right things, but sometimes they're just kind of caught in a tough situation. But and I'm sure there'll be more protests and upsets in the future, but it's that multicultural dialogue that's very important to keep that communication going. A lot of times the upsets were over misunderstandings. But here's a list of kind of the security issues around the mine and the challenges that Freeport faced over the years. And Freeport did a lot of work with human rights training for the military and the police that were there, and I think they've made a lot of progress. Then that takes us down to the port facility, and this is the power plant, and you can see just below the power plant shot there in the middle and the bottom, that's where they load the concentrate. So the concentrate does come down in a small pipeline to the port, it's dried, and it's loaded onto ships, and then it's sent to smelters. And Freeport has built a smelter in Indonesia. They're expanding the smelter in Indonesia, but they also send, in the past, they've sent the concentrate to China and to other smelters around the world. Freeport also has a smelter in Spain, which they sent some to. The power plant was interesting. We had to do a separate environmental impact study for that. We did the study. It was almost approved, and the construction workers, they were very anxious to get the plant up and running because they needed the power for the Grasberg to fire up the mill. And so I went in and I talked to the government officials, and I told them that we needed to put some test pilings in the ground because it's very, being in the estuary there, the soil is soupy and not very stable for building big power plants on, so they would have to drive these piles into the ground. And so we got permission to do these test piles, and we got permission to do more test piles, and then we got permission to do test concrete foundation pouring, and then we got permission to do steel erection, and we literally had the plant halfway built, even though we didn't have all the permits approved at the time. This is like 20 years ago, and I'm not sure you can do this today. But the government worked with us, and we eventually got the approvals, and the plant was built, and they were able to meet their construction schedule. So again, it's that building of trust and good communication with the government officials that enabled us to keep this project on track, and that's an important part. You also see one of the large saltwater crocodiles in the bottom right-hand corner, and kind of a local guy riding it there. So, and these are some more of the challenges. The coal power plant has, emissions, a lot of carbon emissions come off of that, fly ash disposal from it. They're looking at a hydroelectric project. They've studied that to replace the coal plant, but there's a big upfront investment that's required for that. And right now they're building a smelter, so they really don't have the money to invest in a hydro project. But down the road, they might be able to do that. They have these storage tanks for oil. We had built 8 sewage treatment plants, medical waste incinerators. These are kind of the things that you don't think about that a mine like this has to have in order to be successful. So then I just list a number of the external initiatives here that Freeport works under to be, a good corporate citizen. And I've listed out some of the sustainable development implementation of the project. Freeport has a lot of publications, principles of business conduct. They put out every year. They have external reporting to stakeholders on their sustainable development plan. They also have their annual report that they put out. And so Freeport is one of the better mining companies, and they're part of part of the effort to really take the mining industry to a better level. And so the challenges ahead for Freeport is they've got to transition from this open pit era to the underground, this large complex block cave operation. They still have corruption that they have to work through with the Indonesian government, military, and police. They have human rights issues that they have to continue to work on. They have to work with the local cultural and heritage, which is quite different, and yet try to preserve that. The environmental impacts are enormous on a big operation like this. They have to figure out how to share and distribute the benefits of the operation, and they do a lot of that through their 1% program. It's hard, but when you're remote like that, you make a lot of decisions. But now that you have a large community next to you, the government now is the 51% owner in the operation. So Freeport's going to have to share in the decision making more, which is not always an easy thing to do. And then transparency, trying to be open and provide information to people. So we've put together a lot of really good websites here for you if you want some additional information and reading on the project. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to talk about this project. So any